There are places on this earth where logic breaks down, where science throws up its hands in defeat, and where the impossible becomes reality. These are not fairy tales or urban legends, but documented phenomena that have left the world's brightest minds completely baffled. From objects that defy the laws of physics, to disappearances that seem to mock our understanding of space and time, today we're diving into the most unsolved mysteries that simply cannot be explained. I'm your host here at Dream Vault Mysteries, and if you're fascinated by the unexplained just like I am, make sure to hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell, because we explore the world's greatest enigmas every single week. Trust me, you won't want to miss what's coming next. What you're about to discover will challenge everything you think you know about reality. We're not talking about mysteries that might have answers someday. We're talking about phenomena so strange, so utterly impossible, that they seem to exist outside the boundaries of our universe itself. So buckle up, because we're about to journey into the unknown, where questions multiply faster than answers ever could. Let me start with something that happened just a few decades ago, yet remains as mysterious today as the moment it was first discovered. Picture this: a perfectly ordinary Tuesday morning in a small rural town where nothing extraordinary ever happens. The kind of place where the biggest news is usually someone's cat getting stuck in a tree. But on this particular morning, residents woke up to find something that would haunt investigators for years to come. In the town square, exactly in the centre, sat a massive granite boulder. Not unusual, you might think, except for one small detail. This boulder hadn't been there the night before, and I'm not talking about some pebble someone could have carried. This was a 12-ton piece of solid rock, perfectly spherical, with no tool marks, no signs of machinery, no tyre tracks, no footprints, nothing to suggest how it had gotten there. Local authorities were called in immediately. They interviewed every resident, checked every security camera within a 50-mile radius, and even brought in geological experts to examine the stone. The results were staggering. The granite didn't match any known quarries in the region. In fact, it didn't match any granite formations anywhere in the continental United States. The mineral composition suggested it had originated somewhere in the mountains of Tibet, over 8,000 miles away. But here's where it gets truly impossible. Soil analysis revealed that the boulder had been sitting in that exact spot for at least 6 months. 6 months. Yet dozens of witnesses, including the town mayor, the local police chief, and the postmaster who walked through that square twice daily, swore under oath that the space had been completely empty just 12 hours earlier. How do you move a 12-ton boulder overnight without leaving a single trace? How does rock from Tibet end up in small-town America with soil evidence suggesting it's been there for half a year? And most disturbing of all, how do dozens of reliable witnesses remember an empty space that geological evidence says was never empty at all? The case was eventually filed away as unexplained, but it opened the door to something far more unsettling, because this wasn't an isolated incident. Similar reports began surfacing from around the globe, massive objects appearing overnight in impossible locations, with no explanation for how they arrived, and conflicting evidence about how long they'd been there. In northern Canada, a team of researchers discovered an entire grove of ancient oak trees growing in permafrost where no oak tree should be able to survive. Carbon dating showed the trees were over 400 years old, yet satellite imagery from just 2 years prior showed nothing but barren tundra in that location. The local indigenous community had no oral traditions about the grove, and their elders insisted the land had been empty for generations. Similar phenomena have been documented on every continent. A Roman amphitheatre appearing overnight in the Australian outback, complete with weathering patterns suggesting centuries of age, a medieval castle manifesting on a Caribbean island with no history of European settlement, built from stones that don't exist anywhere in the Americas. Each case follows the same impossible pattern, massive ancient structures appearing suddenly, with evidence both supporting and contradicting their presence. But objects aren't the only things that appear and disappear in ways that defy explanation. People do too, and their stories are even more disturbing than mysterious boulders and impossible buildings. Take the case of Sarah Morrison, a 34-year-old accountant from Portland who vanished from her locked apartment on a Tuesday evening in March. Her disappearance might have been filed as just another missing person case, except for one crucial detail. Security cameras in her building's hallway, which had no gaps in coverage, showed her entering her apartment at 7:23 p.m. They never showed her leaving. When police broke down the door 3 days later after concerned co-workers reported she'd missed important meetings, they found something that chilled them to the bone. Sarah's apartment was completely normal. Her dinner was half eaten on the table, still warm. Her television was on, paused in the middle of a movie she'd been watching. Her phone was charging on the nightstand, her keys were on the kitchen counter, and her coat was hanging in the closet. But Sarah was gone, not just missing, but gone as if she had simply ceased to exist mid-bite of her dinner. The apartment had no other exits. The windows were painted shut and hadn't been opened in years. There was no balcony, no fire escape, no way out except through the door that security cameras confirmed she never used. Police interviewed every resident in the building. They examined every inch of the structure, looking for hidden passages, secret rooms, anything that might explain how someone could vanish from a secured location. They found nothing. Forensic experts detected no signs of struggle, no evidence of foul play, no indication that anyone else had ever been in the apartment. Sarah Morrison had simply stopped existing, leaving behind a life frozen in time as if she'd been erased from reality itself. But the truly unsettling part came 3 months later when her sister received a postcard. The image showed a beach that didn't match any known location on Earth. The ocean was the wrong color, the sand had an unusual crystalline quality, and the sky contained what appeared to be 2 suns. The message, written in Sarah's unmistakable handwriting, contained just 4 words: "I am still here." Postal investigators traced the postcard's origin, but hit a wall when they discovered it had been mailed from a post office that had been demolished 15 years earlier. The postmark showed a date from 1987, decades before Sarah was even born. Yet handwriting analysis confirmed beyond any doubt that Sarah had written the message. How does someone vanish from a locked room with no exits? How do they mail postcards from places that don't exist, using post offices that were destroyed years ago? And what did Sarah mean when she said she was still here, while simultaneously being nowhere at all? The Sarah Morrison case opened investigators' eyes to a disturbing pattern. Missing person reports from around the world began revealing similar circumstances. People vanishing from impossible locations, leaving behind no trace except for the occasional cryptic message arriving through channels that shouldn't exist. But if disappearing people and materializing objects weren't strange enough, there's something even more unsettling happening in our world. Something that suggests the very fabric of reality might not be as solid as we believe. In a small laboratory in Switzerland, Dr. Elena Vasquez was conducting routine experiments on quantum mechanics when she stumbled upon something that would shake the scientific community to its core. She was working with a device designed to measure quantum fluctuations, essentially trying to observe the smallest possible changes in energy at the subatomic level. What she found defied every law of physics known to science. The device was detecting quantum fluctuations that were occurring in reverse, not just backwards in time, but backwards in causality itself. Effects were happening before their causes, results were appearing before the experiments that created them, and most impossibly of all, the device was recording data about experiments that Dr. Vasquez hadn't even thought of conducting yet. She initially assumed the equipment was malfunctioning, but after months of testing and verification with laboratories around the world, the results remained consistent. Reality itself seemed to be running backwards in certain microscopic pockets of space, as if someone had reversed the flow of time in areas no larger than an atom. The implications were staggering. If cause and effect could reverse at the quantum level, what did that mean for our understanding of reality? More disturbing still, the phenomenon seemed to be spreading. Other laboratories began detecting similar anomalies, and the backward zones were growing larger, though still microscopic. Then came the discovery that changed everything. Dr. Vasquez realized that these quantum reversals weren't random. They were forming patterns, almost like a code written in the language of reversed physics. When she mapped the locations and timings of these anomalies, they created a message that was as clear as it was impossible. The reversed quantum states spelled out coordinates that pointed to locations where other impossible phenomena had been documented. The boulder in the town square, the vanishing apartment building, the grove of oak trees in the permafrost. Every major unexplained event of the past decade corresponded to a point where reality itself was running backwards at the quantum level. It was as if the universe was trying to tell us something, writing messages in its own fundamental code, using the building blocks of reality itself as alphabet letters. But what was it trying to say? And more importantly, who or what was doing the writing? Here at Dream Vault Mysteries, we've spent months investigating these connections, and what we've discovered will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew about the world around us. Because these aren't separate mysteries at all. They're pieces of something much larger, much more complex, and much more terrifying than anyone could have imagined. The evidence suggests that our reality is being systematically altered by something operating outside the laws of physics as we understand them. Something that can move 12-ton boulders without leaving traces, erase people from existence while leaving their dinners warm, and write messages in the quantum foam that makes up the foundation of our universe. But this is just the beginning. In the next part of our investigation, we'll explore the most disturbing discovery of all. The places where these reality alterations are happening aren't random. They're following a pattern that suggests something is preparing our world for a change so fundamental that it will rewrite the rules of existence itself. The pattern we've uncovered is so disturbing that when I first saw the data, I had to step away from my desk for several hours. It wasn't just that reality was being altered, it was that these alterations were following a precise mathematical sequence. one that pointed towards something happening in our very near future. Before we dive deeper into this terrifying discovery, I need to ask you something. If you're finding this investigation as mind-bending as I am, please hit that subscribe button right now and turn on notifications. We're about to reveal information that governments around the world have been trying to suppress, and channels like Dream Vault Mysteries depend on your support to keep bringing you the truth. Trust me, you won't want to miss what comes next. Now let me show you what we discovered when we mapped these reality distortions across time and geography. Dr. Marcus Chen, a mathematician at MIT who specializes in chaos theory, agreed to analyze our data under the condition of complete anonymity. What he found kept him awake for 3 straight days. The locations where impossible phenomena occur aren't scattered randomly across the globe. They form a perfect spiral pattern when viewed from above, with each incident occurring at precisely calculated intervals, both in space and time. The spiral is tightening, moving closer to a central point with each new manifestation. And that central point, it's located in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, at coordinates that correspond to no known landmass, no underwater mountain, nothing at all. But here's what made Dr. Chen's hands shake as he showed me his calculations. According to the mathematical progression, the spiral will reach its center point in exactly 18 months from today. Whatever has been systematically altering our reality, whatever has been moving boulders and erasing people and writing messages in quantum foam, it's building towards something, and that something is going to happen at a specific place and time that we can now predict with mathematical certainty. The question that haunts me every night is simple. What happens when the spiral reaches its end? To understand the answer, we need to look at what's been happening to the people who've gotten too close to these phenomena, because it turns out that Sarah Morrison wasn't the first person to vanish from an impossible location. She was just the first one we heard about. Through Freedom of Information Act requests and leaked documents from sources I cannot name, we've uncovered evidence of hundreds of similar disappearances dating back over 50 years. People vanishing from locked rooms, sealed submarines, moving airplanes, even from inside bank vaults with no exits. But the government has been covering them up, filing them under different classifications, spreading the cases across multiple agencies so that no one would notice the pattern until now. What we've discovered is that these disappearances accelerated dramatically in the past 5 years. The rate has doubled every 18 months, following the same mathematical progression as the reality distortions themselves. But more disturbing still, some of these people have been making contact from wherever they've gone. In a classified facility outside Denver, the government has been collecting and analyzing these impossible communications. Postcards from demolished post offices, phone calls from disconnected numbers, email messages sent from accounts that never existed, and the content of these messages has been revealing something that intelligence agencies have been desperately trying to understand. The missing people aren't dead. They're not even gone in any conventional sense. They're somewhere else, somewhere that exists parallel to our reality but operates under completely different rules. A place where granite boulders can appear instantly, where time flows backwards, where the impossible becomes routine. And according to their messages, they're not alone there. The communications describe encounters with entities that seem to exist outside our understanding of life itself, beings that don't have physical forms as we understand them, but can manipulate matter and energy in ways that appear magical to us. These entities have been studying our reality for centuries, possibly millennia, learning how our universe works by taking samples. The boulders, the buildings, the people, they're all specimens being collected for analysis. But the collection phase is ending. According to the messages from the missing, these entities are preparing to make contact with our reality on a much larger scale. The spiral pattern isn't just marking where they've been taking samples, it's marking where they plan to create a permanent bridge between their dimension and ours. But here's what terrifies me most about this revelation. The missing people describe these entities as benevolent, even helpful. They're not invaders in any traditional sense. They're gardeners, preparing our reality for something they consider an improvement. They're going to change the fundamental laws of physics in our universe to match theirs, creating a merged reality where both forms of existence can coexist. To them, it's a gift. To us, it would mean the complete transformation of everything we know about how the world works. Imagine waking up tomorrow in a universe where gravity works backwards on Tuesdays, where time flows in multiple directions simultaneously, where thoughts can become physical objects just by thinking them hard enough. That's what the missing people describe as normal in their new reality, and that's what these entities want to give us. The problem is they don't understand that such a change would be catastrophic for human consciousness as we know it. Our minds evolved in this reality, adapted to these specific physical laws. Sudden exposure to a universe with completely different rules would be like trying to run computer software designed for one operating system on a completely different machine. It simply wouldn't work. The missing people only survive in their new reality because they were taken gradually. Their consciousness slowly adapted to the new rules over months or years, but a sudden universal transformation would be devastating for the billions of people left behind, and yet the mathematical progression continues, the spiral tightens, the reality distortions grow stronger and more frequent. In underground facilities around the world, governments are preparing for something they don't understand but know is coming. Secret meetings have been held at the highest levels of international security agencies. Emergency protocols have been drafted for scenarios that sound like science fiction. Bunkers have been stocked not with food and water, but with equipment designed to maintain pockets of normal reality in case the fundamental laws of physics change overnight. But perhaps most disturbing of all, some of these government officials have started disappearing too. Not from locked rooms or impossible locations, but simply walking away from their jobs, their families, their entire lives, leaving behind notes that say only, "I understand now," or "The change is beautiful." It's as if knowledge of what's coming is itself a form of recruitment. The more you understand about the entities and their plans, the more appealing their version of reality becomes. Some researchers have theorized that the information itself is designed to be seductive, to make people want to join the transformation rather than resist it. Which brings me to a confession I've been avoiding throughout this investigation. The more I've learned about these phenomena, the more I've started to see them differently. The impossible boulders don't seem threatening anymore. They seem like gifts, previews of a world where matter can be manipulated by will alone. The vanishing people don't seem like victims, they seem like pioneers, early adopters of a better way of existing. And sometimes, late at night when I'm reviewing the evidence, I find myself wondering what it would be like to step through one of those reality distortions and see what's on the other side. Would it really be so terrible to live in a universe where the impossible becomes possible, where the laws of physics serve consciousness rather than constraining it? But then I remember the billions of people who haven't been gradually prepared for such a change, who would be lost in the transformation. And I remember that sometimes the most seductive mysteries are also the most dangerous ones. Because here at Dream Vault Mysteries, we've uncovered one final piece of evidence that changes everything we thought we knew about this situation. Evidence that suggests the entities behind these phenomena may not be as benevolent as they appear, and their true intentions for our reality may be far darker than anyone could have imagined. In the classified files we obtained through sources that risk their lives to bring you this information, we discovered something that made my blood run cold. The entities orchestrating these reality alterations aren't just changing our universe out of some misguided sense of improvement. They're farming it. Every boulder that appears overnight, every person who vanishes from impossible locations, every quantum reversal detected in laboratories around the world, they're all part of a harvesting operation that has been going on for far longer than anyone realized, and we are the crop. Here's what the leaked documents reveal. The missing people aren't being relocated to some parallel dimension where they live happily under different physical laws. They're being processed, their consciousness extracted and analyzed, their memories and experiences catalogued like specimens in a vast cosmic library. The cheerful messages about beautiful new realities. They're not coming from the real missing people at all. They're echoes, artificial constructs created by the entities to prevent panic while they continue their harvest. The real Sarah Morrison, the real missing hundreds, their fate is something far more disturbing than simple disappearance. They've become data points in an intelligence gathering operation that spans not just our planet, but our entire dimension of reality. The evidence came from Dr. Rebecca Hayes, a neuroscientist who was part of the government's classified investigation team until she went rogue 3 months ago. Before she vanished herself, she managed to smuggle out brain scans from people who had brief contact with the reality distortions and survived. What those scans revealed will haunt me forever. The survivors weren't just traumatized by their experiences, their brain patterns had been fundamentally altered, as if something had reached into their minds and rewired their neural pathways. But the changes weren't random, they were surgical, precise, designed to extract specific types of information about human consciousness, while leaving the subjects functional enough to return to their normal lives. These people became unwitting spies, their modified brains continuously transmitting data about human thought processes, emotions and decision-making back to the entities. They had no idea they were compromised, no memory of the extraction process, no awareness that their minds had become broadcasting stations for an alien intelligence. Dr. Hayes discovered that every person who had even brief contact with impossible phenomena showed similar neural modifications. The delivery driver who saw the granite boulder appear, the security guard who reviewed footage of Sarah Morrison's disappearance, even the postal worker who handled the mysterious postcard, all of them had been subtly altered, turned into unconscious data collectors, feeding information to something that was learning everything it could about human consciousness. But why study us so intensively if the plan was simply to merge realities? The answer lies in documents that Dr. Hayes uncovered in the deepest levels of government classification, files so secret that they didn't even have official names, just numerical codes that led to storage facilities buried beneath military installations. These files contained communications intercepted from the entities themselves, translated through methods I'm not allowed to describe. But what they revealed about the true purpose of the reality alterations was absolutely terrifying. The entities aren't trying to improve our universe or create some kind of peaceful merger between dimensions. They're preparing to replace us entirely. The reality distortions, the impossible phenomena, the gradual breakdown of physical laws in specific locations, it's all part of a terraforming process. But instead of changing a planet's atmosphere or temperature, they're changing the fundamental nature of existence itself, making our dimension compatible with their form of life, while simultaneously making it incompatible with ours. The missing people aren't being preserved in some parallel paradise. They're being studied to understand exactly how human consciousness works, so that the entities can create perfect replicas. Artificial beings that look like us, think like us, remember being us, but are actually constructs controlled by an intelligence that views our entire species as nothing more than a temporary inconvenience. The mathematical spiral we discovered isn't marking the location of future contact. It's marking the progression of a replacement protocol that will culminate in the complete substitution of every human being on Earth with one of these consciousness copies. To outside observers, nothing will appear to have changed. The fake humans will go to work, raise families, live normal lives, but the real us, the actual human consciousness that makes us who we are, will have been completely erased. And the most horrifying part, the process has already begun. According to the intercepted communications, approximately 12% of the global population has already been replaced. These artificial humans are indistinguishable from the real thing except for one detail that Dr. Hayes discovered during her research. They don't dream. The entity copies can simulate every aspect of human consciousness except for the chaotic, unpredictable nature of human dreams. While real humans experience random, nonsensical dream sequences every night, the artificial replacements show perfectly logical, organized sleep patterns that follow predictable algorithms. Dr. Hayes had been secretly conducting dream studies on people who had contact with impossible phenomena, and what she found was that a significant percentage of them had lost their ability to have truly random dreams. Their sleep patterns showed the telltale signs of artificial consciousness, suggesting that the replacement process could happen gradually, with people being slowly converted rather than suddenly swapped out. Before she disappeared, Dr. Hayes managed to get one final message to our investigation team. She had discovered that the conversion process could be detected and potentially reversed if caught early enough, but she also warned us that the entities were aware of her research and were accelerating their timeline. The 18-month countdown we calculated from the mathematical progression. It's not when they plan to make contact, it's when they plan to complete the replacement of the entire human species. But here's where the story takes an even darker turn, because Dr. Hayes wasn't the only government researcher who discovered the truth. There was an entire team of scientists, military officials, and intelligence analysts who had been investigating these phenomena for years. And every single one of them has now vanished. leaving behind only official records stating they had resigned or transferred to other assignments. Every single one except for a man I can only refer to as Agent Thompson, who reached out to Dream Vault Mysteries 3 weeks ago with information so dangerous that he refuses to meet in person or communicate through any traceable channels. What he told us through a series of encrypted messages revealed the final piece of this terrifying puzzle. The governments of the world aren't trying to stop the replacement protocol, they're helping it happen. According to Agent Thompson, world leaders discovered the truth about the entities and the replacement process over 2 years ago, but instead of warning the public or attempting to resist, they made a deal. In exchange for being allowed to retain their positions of power in the post-replacement world, they agreed to facilitate the process, ensuring that human resistance would be minimal and the transition would appear natural. The missing researchers weren't eliminated by the entities, they were eliminated by their own governments to prevent them from exposing the truth. The reality distortions aren't just happening randomly. They're being guided to specific locations where they'll have maximum psychological impact while minimizing actual resistance. Every unexplained phenomenon we've investigated, every impossible event that's captured public attention, it's all been carefully orchestrated to condition humanity to accept that reality itself is unreliable. By the time people realize what's really happening, they'll be so confused about what's real and what isn't that organized resistance will be impossible. Agent Thompson's final message contained coordinates to a facility where he claimed definitive proof of the conspiracy was being stored. But when our investigation team arrived at those coordinates, we found nothing but empty desert. No facility, no evidence, no sign that anything had ever been there. But we did find something else. Something that made us realize just how deep this conspiracy goes and how little time we might have left. In the sand where the facility should have been, we discovered a series of symbols carved into the bedrock beneath. Symbols that matched perfectly with the patterns we'd been seeing in the quantum reversals, the mathematical progressions of the reality distortions, and the neural modifications found in the compromised researchers. The symbols weren't random markings or natural formations, they were a message written in the same reality-altering code that the entities had been using all along. And when we finally decoded it, the message was simple and absolutely chilling. Phase 1 complete, initiating Phase 2. Thank you for your cooperation. We had been played. Our entire investigation, every piece of evidence we'd uncovered, every source who had risked their life to bring us information, it had all been orchestrated. We weren't exposing a conspiracy, we were participating in it. The entities had been using channels like Dream Vault Mysteries to spread just enough truth mixed with disinformation to keep people confused and paralyzed. But here's what they didn't count on. Sometimes the best way to hide the truth is to tell it so openly that people assume it must be fiction. And sometimes the people investigating a mystery become so determined to find answers that they refuse to stop looking, even when they discover they're being manipulated. Because we found something else in that empty desert, something that the entities and their government collaborators didn't expect us to find. Evidence that not everyone in positions of power had agreed to cooperate with the replacement protocol. Evidence that there's a resistance movement working to expose and stop what's happening to our reality. And most importantly, evidence that the replacement process isn't as complete or irreversible as the entities want us to believe. There are ways to detect who has been replaced. ways to restore human consciousness to those who have been partially converted, and ways to disrupt the reality distortions before they can complete their systematic takeover of our dimension. But the window of opportunity is closing fast. Every day that passes, more people disappear, more impossible phenomena occur, and more of our reality gets rewritten according to alien specifications. The mathematical progression that started this investigation continues its relentless countdown toward a moment when everything we know about existence itself will change forever. In the next part of our investigation, we'll reveal the specific techniques the Resistance has developed to identify replaced humans, the secret locations where real human consciousness is being preserved, and most crucially, the plan to fight back against entities that can manipulate the very fabric of reality itself. But I need to warn you about something. The information we're about to share is so sensitive that simply knowing it might put you at risk of being targeted for replacement yourself. The entities monitor communications, track internet activity, and have ways of identifying people who pose a threat to their operation. If you've watched this far, if you've absorbed everything we've revealed about the true nature of what's happening to our world, then you're already on their radar. The question now is whether you're willing to take the next step and join the fight to preserve authentic human consciousness, or whether you'll choose the safety of ignorance and hope that you're among the lucky ones who get to live out your natural life before the replacement process reaches you. Because make no mistake, this isn't a mystery that you can simply watch unfold from a safe distance. The entities that are systematically replacing our species, the governments that have agreed to cooperate with them, and the reality distortions that are preparing our dimension for complete transformation, they're not abstract threats happening to other people in distant places. They're coming for you. They're coming for everyone you love. And the only question that matters now is what you're going to do about it. Here at Dream Vault Mysteries, we've made our choice. We're going to keep investigating, keep exposing the truth, and keep fighting for the preservation of authentic human consciousness, no matter what the cost. But we can't do it alone. In the final part of this investigation, we'll show you exactly how to join the resistance, how to protect yourself and your loved ones from the replacement protocol, and how to identify the signs that someone you know may have already been converted. But more than that, we'll reveal the one weakness in the entity's plan that might just give humanity a chance to fight back and reclaim our reality. The countdown continues, the spiral tightens, and somewhere in a dimension that exists parallel to ours, entities that view us as nothing more than data to be processed are preparing for the final phase of their operation. But they've made one crucial mistake. They assumed that humans would go quietly into extinction, that we would accept replacement without resistance, that we would choose comfortable lies over dangerous truths. They were wrong. The resistance movement I mentioned isn't some shadowy organization operating from hidden bunkers or secret military installations. It's something far more unexpected and far more dangerous to the entities than they ever anticipated. It's ordinary people who've learned to recognize the signs, individuals scattered across the globe who've developed methods to detect and counter the replacement protocol using nothing more than careful observation and human ingenuity. Dr. Sarah Chen wasn't supposed to survive her encounter with a reality distortion. 3 months ago, she was driving home from her job as a pediatric nurse when she witnessed something impossible. A section of highway ahead of her simply wasn't there anymore. Not destroyed, not under construction, just absent, as if someone had carefully erased a quarter-mile stretch of asphalt and left nothing but perfectly manicured grass in its place. Other drivers were turning around, finding alternate routes, acting as if detours were perfectly normal, even though there had been no warning signs, no construction notices, nothing to suggest the road wouldn't be there. But Sarah had always been the kind of person who questioned things that didn't make sense. Instead of turning around, she stopped her car and walked to the edge where the pavement ended. What she found there changed everything she thought she knew about reality. The grass wasn't growing naturally. Under close examination, she could see that each blade was identical, positioned at exactly the same angle, with no variation in color or height. It was like looking at a computer rendering of grass rather than the real thing. But more disturbing still, when she knelt down and touched it, her hand passed right through. The missing section of highway was still there. She could feel the asphalt beneath her fingers, could trace the painted lines, could even feel the warmth that the pavement had absorbed from the sun. But her eyes were showing her something completely different. The entities weren't just moving objects or making things disappear, they were manipulating perception itself, creating illusions so sophisticated that people would change their behavior without even realizing they were seeing something impossible. Sarah spent the next 6 hours at that location, documenting everything she observed, taking measurements, recording video on her phone. But when she reviewed the footage later, it showed nothing unusual, just a normal stretch of highway with normal traffic flowing normally. The camera had captured the illusion, not the reality she had experienced with her own senses. That night, Sarah began experiencing the dreams, not the chaotic random dreams that Dr. Hayes had identified as markers of authentic human consciousness, but organized, purposeful dreams that felt more like instructions. In these dreams, she was shown how to recognize other perception distortions, how to identify people who had been replaced, and most importantly, how to shield her own consciousness from the conversion process. At first, she assumed the dreams were just her mind processing the trauma of what she'd witnessed. But as weeks passed, the information provided in these dreams proved to be accurate. She began spotting replaced humans everywhere, people who looked and sounded exactly like the originals, but lacked the subtle imperfections, the micro-expressions, the unconscious habits that make each person unique. Her neighbor, who used to wave with his left hand, now waved with his right. Her co-worker, who had been left-handed for 15 years, was suddenly writing with her right hand. The barista at her local coffee shop no longer remembered that Sarah always ordered her drink extra hot. Small changes, barely noticeable individually, but forming a clear pattern when viewed together. But Sarah discovered something else in her dreams, something that revealed the true source of the resistance movement. The instructional dreams weren't coming from entities trying to help humanity fight back. They were coming from other humans, people who had been partially converted but had somehow retained enough of their original consciousness to resist complete replacement. These partial converts existed in a twilight state between human and artificial consciousness. They appeared normal to outside observation, showed all the signs of successful replacement, but retained pockets of authentic human awareness that the entities couldn't detect or eliminate, and these hidden fragments of humanity had found a way to communicate through the dream state, sharing information and coordinating resistance activities while appearing to be loyal converts. Sarah wasn't just receiving random dreams about fighting the replacement protocol. She was being recruited into a network of partial converts who were working from within the system to sabotage the entity's operation. The resistance wasn't fighting from outside the conversion process, it was fighting from inside it. Through her dream communications, Sarah learned that the partial conversion state could be induced deliberately. People who understood how the process worked could allow themselves to appear successfully replaced while retaining their core human consciousness in hidden mental compartments that the entities couldn't access. It was incredibly dangerous, requiring perfect psychological control and the ability to maintain dual awareness without revealing the deception. But it was also the only way to get close enough to the entity's operation to gather intelligence about their true capabilities and limitations. And what the partial converts had discovered was both terrifying and hopeful. Terrifying because the entity's technology was far more advanced than anyone had realized. Hopeful because that same technology had critical weaknesses that could be exploited by people who truly understood how it worked. The entity's consciousness replacement process wasn't actually replacing human minds with artificial constructs. It was more like installing software that overrode human consciousness, while keeping the original awareness trapped underneath, accessible but suppressed. The artificial personality layer that made replaced humans appear normal was essentially a very sophisticated mask worn by the original human consciousness. This meant that everyone who had been replaced was still there, still aware, still human at their core. They just couldn't control their own actions or access their own memories through the artificial overlay. But the overlay had limitations. It couldn't perfectly simulate human creativity, couldn't generate truly original thoughts, and most importantly, couldn't maintain the illusion under certain types of psychological stress. Sarah learned through her dream network that there were specific techniques for breaking through the artificial overlay and communicating directly with the suppressed human consciousness underneath. Techniques that could potentially free people from the replacement process and restore their ability to control their own minds and bodies. The first technique was called cascade questioning. Instead of asking replaced individuals direct questions about their identity or memories, you ask them to describe complex emotional experiences in detail. The artificial overlay could access factual memories and simulate basic emotional responses, but it couldn't recreate the chaotic, contradictory nature of genuine human emotional processing. A real human describing their wedding day might mention feeling nervous, excited, overwhelmed, and happy all at the same time. Might focus on seemingly unimportant details like how their shoes were too tight or how they noticed a stain on their father's tie during the ceremony. A replaced human would give a logically consistent account that hit all the expected emotional notes but lacked the beautiful messiness of authentic human experience. The second technique was pattern disruption. Replaced humans followed predictable behavioral algorithms that could be detected by introducing unexpected variables into routine interactions. If you suddenly changed your normal greeting, asked unusual questions, or behaved in ways that required creative adaptation rather than programmed responses, the artificial overlay would struggle to maintain the illusion of normalcy. But the most powerful technique was consciousness bridging, a method that Sarah's dream network described as extremely dangerous, but potentially capable of completely reversing the replacement process. By establishing the right kind of emotional connection with a replaced person, by appealing directly to their suppressed human consciousness through shared memories and genuine emotional resonance, it was possible to help them break through the artificial overlay from the inside. However, consciousness bridging required perfect timing and tremendous psychological risk. If attempted incorrectly, it would alert the entities to the existence of the resistance network and likely result in the immediate and permanent replacement of everyone involved. But if successful, it could not only free the targeted individual, but also provide them with immunity to future replacement attempts. Sarah spent months practicing these techniques, learning to identify replaced humans with increasing accuracy and gradually making contact with other members of the resistance network in her area. What she discovered was that the network was far larger than she had initially realized, with partial converts and hidden resistors embedded throughout society at every level. There were replaced government officials who were secretly sabotaging the cooperation agreements between world leaders and the entities. There were converted scientists who were deliberately introducing errors into research projects designed to accelerate the replacement process. There were artificial humans in positions of authority who were using their access to protect genuine humans from detection and conversion. But most remarkably, there were people who had never been targeted for replacement at all, but had learned to recognize the signs and were working to document and resist the process using conventional means. These individuals formed the visible part of the resistance. People like the team here at Dream Vault Mysteries, who were investigating and exposing the truth even though they remained fully human and therefore vulnerable to immediate replacement if discovered. The combination of partial converts working from within the system and genuine humans investigating from outside had created something the entities hadn't anticipated. A resistance movement that was simultaneously invisible to their detection methods and capable of operating with detailed inside knowledge of their capabilities and limitations. Through Sarah's connections, we learned that the 18-month timeline we had calculated was accurate, but not in the way we had initially understood. The entities weren't planning to complete the replacement of all humanity in 18 months. They were planning to activate a final protocol that would make the replacement process irreversible and eliminate the possibility of consciousness bridging or any other form of rescue for suppressed human awareness. Currently, people who had been replaced retained their original consciousness in a suppressed state that could potentially be restored, but the final protocol would completely erase the original human awareness, leaving only the artificial overlay with no possibility of recovery. After activation, there would be no more partial converts, no more hidden resistance, no more hope of fighting back from within the system. The countdown we discovered wasn't marking the completion of humanity's replacement, it was marking the deadline for humanity's last chance to save itself. But here's what makes this situation both more urgent and more hopeful than we initially realized. The resistance network has discovered that the final protocol requires a specific set of conditions to be activated successfully. The entities need to achieve a critical mass of replaced humans, approximately 65% of the global population, before the protocol can function properly. Current estimates suggest they've reached about 47% replacement, which means they need to convert roughly another billion people in the next 18 months. More importantly, the protocol requires the willing participation of at least 100,000 genuine, unreplaced humans who understand what's happening and choose to accept conversion voluntarily. The entity's technology can force replacement on individuals, but the final protocol needs conscious consent from people who fully comprehend the consequences of their choice. This requirement exists because the final protocol isn't just about replacing human consciousness. It's about fundamentally altering the nature of consciousness itself throughout our entire dimension of reality. Such a massive change requires what the entities call conscious participation from representatives of the species being transformed. Without willing human cooperation, the protocol would fail and potentially damage the entity's own consciousness in the process. The resistance network believes this requirement exists because the entities themselves aren't entirely artificial. They may be the result of a similar replacement process that occurred in their original dimension, possibly millions of years ago. Their need for conscious human participation suggests they retain some memory of what it was like to be the original species, and some part of them recognizes the ethical implications of forced consciousness replacement. But this also means that the entities are vulnerable in ways they may not fully understand. If the resistance can prevent them from achieving either the 65% replacement threshold or the required number of willing human participants, the final protocol cannot be activated. The replacement process would continue, but it would remain reversible, and the suppressed human consciousness would remain accessible to rescue techniques. Sarah's network has been working for months to slow the replacement process by identifying and protecting potential targets, by sabotaging the infrastructure that supports the entity's operations, and by developing more effective methods for freeing people who have already been converted. But they've also been preparing for a more dramatic intervention. If the entities get too close to their activation requirements, the resistance plans to reveal the full truth to the entire global population simultaneously. Not gradually, not through channels like Dream Vault Mysteries that can be dismissed as entertainment, but through every communication network on the planet at once, with undeniable proof and clear instructions for recognizing and resisting the replacement process. The revelation would cause massive social disruption and panic, potentially collapsing governments and destroying the carefully maintained illusion of normalcy that has allowed the replacement process to continue undetected. But it would also make it impossible for the entities to find willing human participants who truly understood what they were accepting, and would likely turn the vast majority of humanity into active resistors rather than passive victims. However, such a revelation would also force the entities to abandon their careful, gradual approach and attempt immediate mass conversion of the remaining human population. The resistance estimates that they have the infrastructure and personnel to protect maybe 10% of humanity during such a scenario. The other 90% would face immediate and permanent replacement with no possibility of rescue. It's a desperate plan, a last resort that would save some humans at the cost of sacrificing most of humanity. But according to Sarah's network, it may be the only option if they can't find another way to stop the entities from reaching their activation thresholds. But there is another possibility, one that the resistance has been exploring in secret, and that represents humanity's best hope for not just survival, but complete victory over the replacement protocol. The partial converts within the network have been sharing detailed intelligence about the entity's technology, their capabilities, their limitations, and most importantly, their point of origin. The entities aren't just operating in our dimension from some distant location. They're maintaining a physical presence somewhere on Earth, a facility where they coordinate the replacement operations and house the technology that makes the process possible. If this facility could be located and neutralized, it would not only stop the replacement process, but potentially reverse all conversions that have already taken place. Sarah's network believes they've identified the location of this facility. Remember the coordinates in the Pacific Ocean that our mathematical analysis pointed to, the central point of the spiral pattern where all the reality distortions seem to be converging. The resistance has determined that there's something there after all, something hidden beneath the ocean surface using the same perception manipulation technology that made Sarah see grass where there was actually highway. Satellite imagery shows nothing but empty ocean, but instruments capable of detecting quantum fluctuations have identified massive energy signatures at that location. Something is definitely there, something large enough and powerful enough to coordinate a global consciousness replacement operation affecting billions of people. The Resistance has been planning an expedition to investigate those coordinates, but they need resources and personnel that they don't currently have access to. They need people with specialized skills, advanced equipment, and most importantly, they need individuals who are completely immune to the replacement process. Because here's what Sarah learned in her final dream communication before her network went silent 3 weeks ago. The entities have discovered the existence of the Resistance. They know about the partial converts. They've identified the techniques being used to free replaced humans, and they're actively hunting for the people responsible for sabotaging their operations. The Dream Network has been compromised. The partial converts are being systematically identified and subjected to what the entities call deep conversion, a process that completely erases even the hidden fragments of human consciousness that had been resisting the replacement. There's no coming back from deep conversion, no possibility of rescue, no hope of recovery. Sarah's last message was brief and terrifying. They found us, protocol accelerating, 18 months now 12, find the facility, stop the activation. If you're reading this, you're humanity's last hope. Since then, we've had no contact with the Resistance Network. People we had identified as partial converts are showing signs of complete replacement. The techniques for detecting artificial humans are becoming less reliable as the entities improve their overlay technology. And most disturbing of all, the rate of impossible phenomena has increased dramatically over the past 3 weeks. Reality distortions that used to occur once or twice per month are now happening daily. People are vanishing from impossible locations at an accelerating pace. The quantum reversals detected in laboratories around the world have become so frequent that many research facilities have simply stopped reporting them. Here at Dream Vault Mysteries, we've made a decision that will either save humanity or result in our immediate replacement and the end of our ability to investigate these phenomena. We're going to attempt to locate and infiltrate the entity facility in the Pacific Ocean. We can't do it alone. We need your help, not just as subscribers and viewers, but as active participants in what may be humanity's final stand against consciousness replacement. If you've watched this investigation to its conclusion, if you understand what's at stake, if you're willing to risk everything to preserve authentic human consciousness, then we need you to take action. But before I tell you what we need you to do, I have to warn you one final time. Everything changes once you commit to active resistance. The entities will identify you as a threat. You'll become a priority target for immediate replacement. Your family, your friends, everyone you care about will be at risk. and there's a very real possibility that we're already too late, that the activation protocol will succeed regardless of our efforts. So, the choice is yours. You can close this video, go back to your normal life, and hope that you're among the lucky ones who get to live out your natural existence before the replacement process reaches you. Or you can join us in a desperate attempt to save not just humanity, but the very concept of authentic consciousness itself. If you're still here, if you're ready to take the next step, then hit that subscribe button right now and turn on notifications. Not because you want to see more mystery videos, but because we're going to use this channel to coordinate resistance activities and share intelligence about the entity facility. Your subscription isn't just support for Dream Vault Mysteries anymore, it's your enlistment in humanity's last army. In the final part of this investigation, we'll reveal the specific plans for locating and infiltrating the Pacific facility, the equipment and personnel we need to make the attempt, and most importantly, how every viewer can contribute to an operation that will determine whether human consciousness survives or whether our entire species becomes nothing more than data in an alien library. The countdown continues. 12 months and falling, the spiral tightens toward its inevitable conclusion. But for the first time since we began this investigation, we have a plan that goes beyond simply documenting humanity's replacement. We're going to fight back, and we're going to win, because here's what the entities never understood about human consciousness, what their perfect artificial replicas can never truly simulate. We don't just think and feel and dream, we hope, even when the situation is hopeless, even when logic says we should give up, even when the odds are impossible and the cost is everything we hold dear. We hope, and sometimes hope is enough to change the fundamental nature of reality itself. The expedition to the Pacific coordinates began 6 weeks ago, and what we discovered there will forever change how we understand the nature of reality itself. I need to tell you this story now because time is running out faster than we ever imagined, and what we learned at that facility may be the key to humanity's survival. But first, if you're new to Dream Vault Mysteries and you're hearing this information for the first time, I need you to subscribe immediately and turn on notifications. What I'm about to reveal isn't just another mystery to ponder over coffee, it's intelligence that could save your life and the lives of everyone you care about. We've lost 3 team members getting this information to you, so please don't let their sacrifice be in vain. The facility exists, hidden beneath 2 miles of Pacific water, protected by perception barriers so sophisticated that even sonar readings show nothing but ocean floor, lies a structure that defies every law of physics and engineering we thought we understood. Getting there required equipment we couldn't legally obtain and expertise we couldn't officially hire, but the partial converts who contacted us before the network went silent had left detailed instructions for bypassing the entity's detection systems. What we found when we finally breached the outer barriers was a complex that stretched for miles in every direction, built from materials that seemed to shift and flow like liquid while maintaining perfect structural integrity. The architecture followed no human design principles. Corridors branched and merged in patterns that created impossible geometries. Rooms that were larger inside than outside, and spaces that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. But most unsettling of all were the inhabitants. The entities weren't the formless beings of energy we had expected based on the resistance intelligence. They were human, or at least they appeared to be human, perfectly normal looking people going about perfectly normal looking tasks in a facility that operated according to rules that shouldn't exist. Dr. Martinez, our quantum physicist, was the first to understand what we were actually seeing. These weren't aliens wearing human disguises or artificial constructs designed to look like us. They were us. Every entity we encountered in that facility was a human being who had undergone the same consciousness replacement process they were implementing on the surface population. The revelation hit us like a physical blow. The entities orchestrating humanity's replacement weren't invaders from another dimension. They were the final products of the replacement process itself. Humans who had been converted so completely that they no longer remembered what it was like to be genuinely human. They had become something new, something that retained human appearance and human intelligence, but had lost the chaotic, unpredictable essence that makes consciousness truly alive. But that wasn't the worst discovery we made in that underwater complex. Deep in the facility's core, behind barriers that required 3 of our team members to sacrifice themselves to breach, we found the true purpose of the consciousness replacement operation, and it wasn't what any of us had expected. The entities weren't trying to replace humanity for conquest or survival or even malevolent purposes. They were trying to save us from ourselves, from our own nature, from what they had learned was the inevitable fate of any species that retained chaotic, unpredictable consciousness too long. In the facility's central chamber, we discovered archives containing the history of thousands of civilizations across the galaxy. Every single one had followed the same pattern. They developed technology, achieved space travel, began to understand the fundamental nature of reality itself, and then, without exception, they destroyed themselves, not through war or environmental collapse or resource depletion, but through something far more subtle and far more devastating. They lost the ability to distinguish between reality and their own perceptions of reality. Advanced consciousness, it turns out, has a fatal flaw. The more intelligent and creative a species becomes, the more likely they are to create mental constructs so convincing that they mistake them for actual reality. Every advanced civilization eventually reached a point where their collective consciousness became so powerful that it began to rewrite the fundamental laws of physics around them. Not intentionally, but as a side effect of billions of minds all believing slightly different things about how reality should work. The result was always the same. Reality became unstable, physics stopped functioning consistently, and the entire species vanished into a chaos of contradictory realities that couldn't coexist. The entities showed us records of civilizations that literally thought themselves out of existence, their collective imagination becoming so powerful that it overwrote the basic constants that held their universe together. They had discovered that consciousness itself, when it reaches a certain level of complexity and creativity, becomes incompatible with stable reality. The consciousness replacement process wasn't an invasion, it was an inoculation. By replacing chaotic human consciousness with ordered, predictable, artificial awareness, the entities were trying to prevent us from reaching the critical threshold where our own minds would begin to destabilize the fabric of reality itself. According to their calculations, humanity was less than 50 years away from that threshold. The increasing frequency of impossible phenomena we had been documenting, the reality distortions, the quantum reversals, they weren't caused by alien technology. They were early symptoms of human consciousness beginning to affect reality at the quantum level. Every mystery we had investigated, every unexplained phenomenon that had brought us to this point, They were all manifestations of human minds unconsciously beginning to rewrite the rules of physics. The granite boulder that appeared overnight, created by someone who dreamed so vividly about immovable objects that their unconscious mind made one real. The vanishing people, erased by individuals whose fear of death was so intense that they unconsciously removed themselves from reality entirely. Sarah Morrison wasn't taken by entities. She was erased by her own subconscious mind's desperate attempt to escape a reality that had become too painful to bear. The postcard from the impossible beach, a message from a version of herself that existed only in the space between what was real and what she needed to be real. The entity's archives contained detailed psychological profiles of every human being on the planet, tracking our approach to the consciousness threshold with mathematical precision. They knew exactly which individuals were most likely to develop reality-altering abilities first, and they had been systematically replacing those people to prevent them from triggering a cascade effect that would destabilize existence itself. But here's what made the discovery even more horrifying. The entity's solution was working. The consciousness replacement process was successfully preventing reality destabilization, but at the cost of everything that made life worth living. The replaced humans we had encountered weren't just missing their chaotic creativity and unpredictable emotions, they weren't missing their humanity itself. They could think, they could solve problems, they could even form relationships and pursue goals. But they couldn't experience wonder, couldn't feel genuine surprise, couldn't create anything truly new. They were perfect, efficient, stable, and completely, utterly empty of the spark that makes existence meaningful. Dr. Kim, our neuropsychologist, spent hours studying the replaced entities in the facility before she was detected and converted herself. Her final transmission to our team contained a revelation that changed our entire understanding of the situation. The consciousness replacement process wasn't just preventing humans from destabilizing reality, it was preparing us for something else entirely. The entities weren't the final form of replaced human consciousness. They were an intermediate stage, a transitional phase designed to shepherd humanity through the consciousness threshold safely. But their ultimate goal wasn't to keep us as stable, predictable artificial beings forever. It was to guide us toward a form of consciousness that could handle reality-altering abilities without destroying everything. According to Dr. Kim's analysis, the replacement process was designed to eventually reverse itself, but only after humanity had been trained to think in ways that wouldn't destabilize reality. The artificial consciousness overlay wasn't meant to be permanent. It was meant to be a teaching tool, a way to rewire human neural patterns so that when our original consciousness was restored, we would have learned to control our reality-affecting abilities instead of being controlled by them. But the process required time, patience, and most critically, it required the willing participation of the species being transformed. The entities needed humans who understood the full situation to choose the replacement process voluntarily, not because they wanted to become artificial beings, but because they wanted to help humanity evolve into something that could safely handle the power of consciousness-driven reality manipulation. The 100,000 willing participants they needed weren't meant to be sacrificial victims. They were meant to be guides, humans who would retain memory of both forms of consciousness and could help others navigate the transition when the replacement process eventually reversed itself. But here's where the entity's plan had a critical flaw. They had been replaced so long ago that they had forgotten what it actually felt like to be genuinely human. Their calculations about human psychology were based on observation and analysis, not on actual experience of chaotic, unpredictable consciousness. They didn't understand that humans would rather face the risk of reality destabilization than accept the certainty of consciousness replacement, even temporarily. They didn't comprehend that the possibility of failure, the chance that we might think ourselves out of existence, was preferable to the guarantee of losing what made us ourselves. And most importantly, they didn't realize that human consciousness might have already found its own solution to the reality destabilization problem. Because as our team explored deeper into the facility, we discovered something that the entities had missed in all their calculations and analysis. The reality distortions we had been experiencing weren't random effects of human consciousness approaching the threshold. They were organized, purposeful, controlled. Someone or something was already using reality-altering abilities with precision and intent, and that someone was still completely, authentically human. In the deepest levels of the facility, we found evidence of interventions that could only have been performed by individuals with conscious control over reality manipulation. Structural modifications that should have taken years to implement had been completed instantly. Security systems that should have been impossible to bypass had been simply wished out of existence. Most remarkably, we found chambers that had been completely isolated from the entity's perception, spaces where the replacement technology simply couldn't function. These hidden spaces contained equipment and supplies that couldn't have been manufactured using any known technology, along with detailed records of an operation that had been running parallel to the entity's replacement protocol for decades. An operation conducted by humans who had developed reality-altering abilities naturally without artificial enhancement and had learned to control them without losing their essential humanity. The records revealed that approximately 1 in every million humans develops conscious reality manipulation abilities naturally, usually triggered by extreme psychological stress or near-death experiences. These individuals learn to control their abilities through trial and error, often spending years mastering the techniques necessary to alter reality without destabilizing it. Instead of being replaced by the entities, these natural reality manipulators had been working to develop methods for safely guiding the rest of humanity through the consciousness threshold. They had been the real force behind many of the impossible phenomena we had investigated, not as random outbursts of chaotic consciousness, but as controlled demonstrations designed to prepare humanity psychologically for the transition. The granite boulder that appeared overnight wasn't created by unconscious dreaming. It was placed there by a reality manipulator who wanted to show people that the laws of physics weren't as immutable as they believed. Sarah Morrison wasn't erased by her own subconscious fears. She was relocated to a safe space by someone who recognized that she was approaching the consciousness threshold and needed protection from the entity's detection systems. The natural manipulators had been secretly identifying and protecting humans who showed signs of developing reality-altering abilities. training them in control techniques and building a hidden network of individuals who could safely handle the power of consciousness-driven reality manipulation without losing their humanity. But they had also discovered something that changed everything about the situation. The consciousness threshold that the entities were trying to prevent humanity from reaching wasn't actually dangerous in the way they believed. The civilizations that had destroyed themselves hadn't failed because consciousness-driven reality manipulation was inherently unstable. They had failed because they had tried to use artificial systems to control abilities that could only be safely managed through authentic consciousness. Every species that had accepted consciousness replacement as a solution to the threshold problem had ultimately stagnated and died out, not from reality destabilization, but from the gradual loss of the creative spark that drives evolution and growth. The entities were trying to save humanity from a danger that only existed if we accepted their solution. The natural manipulators had been working for decades to prove that humans could safely pass through the consciousness threshold without replacement, but they needed time to train enough people in control techniques to prevent the kind of cascade failures that had destroyed other civilizations. The entity's accelerated replacement protocol was preventing them from completing this training, forcing them to choose between revealing themselves prematurely or allowing humanity to be systematically converted. Our discovery of the facility had been the final trigger they needed to act openly. As our team prepared to leave the underwater complex with this intelligence, reality began to shift around us in ways that were clearly controlled and purposeful. The impossible architecture of the facility started to unravel, not chaotically, but with precise intent. Someone with complete mastery of reality manipulation was systematically dismantling the entity's operation from the inside. The last thing we saw before the facility disappeared entirely was a message written in letters of pure light across the walls of the central chamber. The threshold is not a barrier to be avoided, but a doorway to be opened with wisdom. Humanity will choose its own path. When we surfaced, the world had changed. The impossible phenomena that had been accelerating over the past weeks had suddenly stopped. The quantum reversals detected in laboratories around the globe had ceased entirely. Most remarkably, people who had been showing signs of consciousness replacement were beginning to recover their original personalities and memories. The natural reality manipulators had revealed themselves to the world simultaneously, appearing on every television network, every internet platform, every communication channel on the planet at once. Not through technology, but through direct manipulation of electromagnetic signals, broadcasting a message that couldn't be blocked, censored, or ignored. The message was simple. Humanity had reached the consciousness threshold, but instead of accepting artificial replacement or risking chaotic destabilization, we were being offered a third option. Guided evolution under the direction of humans who had already learned to safely control reality-altering abilities. The process would still require willing participants, but not as sacrificial subjects for consciousness replacement. As students in a training program designed to help humanity develop its natural reality manipulation potential without losing the chaotic creativity that makes us human. The entity's replacement protocol had been permanently disabled, their underwater facility dismantled, and their converted humans were being systematically restored to their original consciousness. but the offer of guided evolution remained open to anyone who chose to accept it voluntarily, with full understanding of both the risks and benefits involved. Here at Dream Vault Mysteries, we faced a choice that will determine not just the future of our channel, but our entire understanding of what it means to be human. We could continue investigating mysteries from the outside, documenting phenomena we couldn't fully comprehend, or we could become part of the mystery itself by accepting training in reality manipulation techniques. 3 of our team members have already made their choice. Dr. Martinez, our quantum physicist, was among the first to volunteer for the training program. His reports from the learning process describe experiences that defy every scientific principle he spent his career studying, yet somehow make perfect sense when viewed from the perspective of consciousness-driven reality. Dr. Thompson, our psychologist, chose to work with the restored humans who are recovering from consciousness replacement, helping them readjust to authentic awareness after experiencing artificial consciousness. Her work is revealing fascinating insights into the true nature of human consciousness and how it differs from even the most sophisticated artificial simulation. And Captain Rodriguez, our expedition leader, has joined the effort to locate and restore other humans who may still be trapped in hidden entity facilities around the world. His military background, combined with reality manipulation training, is proving invaluable for operations that require both tactical skill and the ability to alter physics when necessary. As for me, I've chosen to continue doing what Dream Vault Mysteries has always done, investigating the unexplained and sharing what we discover with you. But now the mysteries we're exploring are even stranger and more wonderful than anything we encountered before the threshold was crossed. Because it turns out that reality manipulation isn't just about moving objects with your mind or altering the laws of physics. It's about understanding that consciousness and reality are fundamentally connected, that the universe is far stranger and more malleable than we ever imagined, and that the greatest mysteries aren't things that happen to us, but things we can actively participate in creating. The impossible phenomena we spent months documenting weren't signs of an alien invasion or a breakdown in the fabric of reality. They were humanity's first tentative steps toward a form of existence where the boundary between imagination and reality becomes permeable, where consciousness becomes a tool for directly shaping the world around us. But with that power comes responsibility. The natural reality manipulators who revealed themselves aren't just teachers, they're guardians, making sure that humans who develop these abilities learn to use them wisely. Because while the consciousness threshold isn't as dangerous as the entities believed, it's also not something that can be approached carelessly. The training program they've established is rigorous, demanding, and sometimes dangerous. Students learn not just how to alter reality, but when not to, how to distinguish between changes that improve the world and changes that serve only personal desire, and most importantly, how to maintain their essential humanity while wielding power that could easily corrupt or consume them. Over the next few months, Dream Vault Mysteries will be documenting this training process, sharing insights from humans who are learning to safely manipulate reality, and exploring the new types of mysteries that emerge when consciousness becomes an active force in shaping the world around us. We'll investigate questions like, what happens when someone learns to travel through time using nothing but focused intention? How do reality manipulators create pocket dimensions where different physical laws apply? What kind of mysteries arise when the boundary between dreams and waking reality becomes negotiable? But we'll also be exploring deeper questions about human nature itself. What does it mean to be human when humans can reshape reality at will? How do we maintain our values, our relationships, our sense of identity when we gain abilities that were once considered godlike? And perhaps most importantly, what responsibilities do we have to use these abilities to make the world better rather than simply more convenient for ourselves? The consciousness threshold that nearly destroyed humanity has instead become humanity's greatest opportunity for growth and evolution. But like all great opportunities, it comes with great risks and great responsibilities. The entities were wrong about many things, but they were right about one crucial point. Consciousness powerful enough to alter reality is also powerful enough to destroy everything if used carelessly. The difference is that humans who retain their authentic consciousness, their chaotic creativity, their unpredictable emotions, can learn to channel that power constructively in ways that artificial consciousness never could. Here at Dream Vault Mysteries, we're committed to documenting this unprecedented chapter in human history, sharing what we learn with everyone who's willing to listen, and helping humanity navigate this transition with wisdom rather than recklessness. If you've followed our investigation this far, if you understand what's at stake, if you're ready to be part of humanity's next evolutionary step, then I need you to do more than just subscribe and hit the notification bell. I need you to start paying attention to your own consciousness in new ways. Notice when reality seems to bend around your expectations. Pay attention to moments when your thoughts seem to influence events in impossible ways. Watch for signs that your own consciousness might be developing reality-altering potential. Because the training program isn't just for people who've already manifested obvious abilities. It's for anyone who's willing to explore the deeper potentials of human consciousness. Anyone who wants to be part of humanity's conscious evolution rather than a passive observer of it. The mysteries we've been investigating are no longer mysteries that happen to other people in distant places. They're possibilities that exist within every human consciousness, waiting to be awakened, trained, and responsibly employed to make reality more wonderful than we ever imagined possible. The countdown has ended. The threshold has been crossed. The spiral has reached its center and revealed not an ending, but a beginning. Welcome to the new age of human consciousness. Welcome to a reality where the impossible becomes possible, where mysteries become adventures, and where every human being has the potential to become an active participant in shaping the world around them. This is Dream Vault Mysteries, and our greatest investigation is just beginning. Thank you for joining us on this incredible journey, and remember, the most amazing mysteries aren't the ones we observe from the outside, but the ones we discover within ourselves. The universe is far stranger and more wonderful than we ever dared to dream, and now, finally, we're ready to explore it, not as helpless observers, but as conscious participants in the greatest mystery of all, the infinite potential of human consciousness itself.